Anti-war methods, ways we can stop war passively from our home using online activism. Now, we believe that the war in Syria that was planned by Barack Obama and Joe Biden and John McCain very likely would have gone forward had there not been a strong resistance. 92% of the American people do not want war in Syria. And that's probably why we have a few people in here who agree with us that we can stop war and we can stop the mechanisms that are fueling war.
I don't even think the people in Syria really want war. There was recently a ceasefire that happened in Homs, and a lot of people escaped from the city.
Right. Well, actually, they're completely complying with the UN directive to reveal chemical weapons. Bashar al-Assad has already done a great deal of that work, and that's kept the chemical weapons cache from being a danger to the people of Damascus. Whether the rebels supported that attack that happened or the people who are loyal to the Syrian government supported it, either way, more conflict is not going to lead to less conflict. And this is one of the biggest problems with people that think about war. They think war is some sort of a pathway to peace.
Exactly. And really, if you want peace, we really have to not take up arms against each other, and we have to try to understand each other's perspective. We might not agree with it, but at least understand it.
Well, the thing about Barack Obama, he hasn't communicated openly with Iran, except through now a negotiation with President Rouhani, which is more like a bribe of $7 billion, which we don't have to spend. And President Rouhani of Iran has not really engaged in an open dialogue about when the IAEA can get in there to see the enriched uranium, which everyone's concerned about. They believe that Iran is weaponizing. Syria, by the same token, they have been fueling their own resistance. Syrian government is trying to stop the rebel-supported troops that are basically getting money from England, France, and the U.S. And it's a conflict that gets worse and worse the more our country and England and France support rebels with military weapons. And
exactly.
That's a huge problem.
I really think that in war-torn areas, we should only be supporting them with medical supplies and
humanitarian support.
Humanitarian aid, yes, exactly. Now, one of the things that's happening, speaking of working toward peace, in Korea, North Korea is going to have a day where the South Korean families and the people that are families on both sides of the border can get together in
that's interesting.
the beach city, a beach town in North Korea. So they're going to be able to go take a train up to North Korea and reunite with family that they haven't seen in decades.
That's a good start.
They've done this in the past, but usually it's been only a few families. It seems like they're going to be doing more.
Yeah.
Now, North Korea has made some overtures to South Korea recently, asking them to not engage in the annual military exercises with the U.S., as a show of good faith for the South Koreans. South Korea, of course, claims that this is just some kind of ploy by North Korea. Wouldn't it be, why do we need to engage in those exercises? I don't really understand. I think it's a provocative gesture, especially considering we are technically still at war with North Korea.
We are at war with North Korea. And let's not forget the fact that Kim Jong-un has killed his uncle, who, by the way, was complaining about their military not being able to eat. So Kim Jong-un fed Uncle Jang to the dogs. This guy is completely unhinged. To think that we can trust these people, same with Iran, is a big mistake. Now, many questions have come in the chat room. Do you think being an alternative candidate, you seem to believe in the Zio mainstream lie of Iran trying to nuke Israel? Well, Legendary, I'm concerned about Iran not negotiating and getting on the table with our nation and others to begin winding down their nuclear operations. I believe the world is now having to enter a post-nuclear age, and we should start thinking about less nuclear power or more knowledgeable meltdown-proof reactors built, as opposed to just giving Iran a free wheel to do whatever they want. I think this is an international crisis we're having with Fukushima right now. And we need to look at that and the fact that Iran really shouldn't even pursue a nuclear program because it's beginning to fail all around the world. Now, Fukushima is just the beginning. Oh, there's a lot of reactors built under the same model. There's 23 reactors like that in America. They're dangerously close to a potential meltdown if a tsunami comes along. So we aren't thinking intelligently as a world power. Our world is beginning to do one-upmanship, one guy against the next. And I believe governments fighting each other is not the way to go, but we should at least get on the same table with nuclear non-proliferation. And I think Iran could make some steps in that right direction, and they haven't. As far as Zionism, sure, I'm actually concerned about Zionism per se. I'm concerned about it's a pariah. No one state should try to take over the world. And that's why we don't need a global government. That's why we don't need a new world order.
Now, many people misinterpret the word Zionism, or there's two different interpretations for the word Zionism. So we should be specific that when you're talking about Zionism, you do believe in Israel having their own state, and that's what some people say is Zionism. Then there's another interpretation that goes a little bit deeper, where some people think that there's an elite group of Zionists who want to take over the world and have a new world order and a one world government, and that's the type that David is against.
I'm against
so
those.
We are in favor of Israel as a country. We don't believe that the United States should support Israel financially, perhaps militarily if they need it, but I don't really think that Israel needs military intervention or support.
We don't need to help them militarily. If they were ever to face a conflict, hypothetically, with another country, whether it be Syria or Iran, we would certainly help support them with air power, but I would not send more troops in. We would not add more ground troops to that operation. We will subtract ground troops from the Middle East. That's my solemn commitment to the American people. Now, we have a bigger problem. Afghanistan, it seems to be still going on, and Barack Obama has sided with the corporate elite that want to use Afghanistan long term, well past 2020.
And in fact, we have a U.S. contractor is being held in Afghanistan.
Oh, by the Taliban? Yeah.
I mean,
well, this is a problem that is now appearing in the streets of America. New York City is seeing heroin prices drop because production from Afghanistan heroin growers and warlords has increased 800% since Bush and Obama started this little field op out there that's turned out to commit about 70,000 troops, U.S. troops, to protecting warlords' heroin crops. Yet nobody in the mainstream media has talked about it. No one's addressing this issue with Barack Obama. And now people like Philip Seymour Hoffman end up getting 50 bags of heroin and shooting up and dying. And you know something? In New York City, in the past 3 years, heroin overdoses have tripled. This is a serious, serious pandemic because of the cheap heroin and our country engaging in a war in Afghanistan. There's no other reason for cheap heroin everywhere, and this abuse could cause the life of a lot of young people. It could be a bad thing for all of us, because no one wants to see their family members turn into a heroin addict and then, shoot up in some dingy apartment. It's pretty sad what's happening. So all of these factors are coming together. The overdose factor, the fact that young men are coming back with PTSD, serious PTSD, and many of them coming back with brain injuries. They talk about 6,000 dead in Iraq and Afghanistan. What about the 45,000 with brain injuries and limb amputations? I mean, seriously, there's a lot of suffering going on right now because of those two wars. And a lot of us are completely anesthetized. And it's like the war is an antiseptic thing that we see sometimes on TV and we don't even talk about it. But it still goes on. And the power structure that controls our country continues to dominate. And they get away with it. So we've got a lot of issues to resolve.
Speaking of some anti-war, just breaking, an Iranian naval officer has said that they have been ordered to send Iranian warships to U.S. maritime borders because the U.S. has positioned our ships in the Gulf.
Yeah. It's a face-off.
It's definitely a face-off.
Well, right along the area of the Strait of Hormuz, there is a land area, the Hormuz area of Iran, that some military strategists in America think they can actually start a ground war and take over southern Iran and then take over Iran and nullify their naval blockade capability along the Strait of Hormuz. This is actually talked about at a high level in the military right now. Starting a war, preemptive strike. Sound familiar? Are we going to repeat every single engagement we've had over the past 50 years? Is this going to be another Vietnam like the Bay of Tonkin, where we never really were attacked by the North Vietnamese? It was all made up. Our PT boats were never really attacked, and then all of a sudden a war started. The Iraq-Afghanistan war, what did that have to do with the 9/11 attack? Can anyone really spell that out for me? And where were those weapons of mass destruction? Why are we going in under all false pretenses and destroying nations, both economically and militarily? What is this? What is this? We are being used by powerful monetary interests as the 911 police force around the world. That's what this country is. The 911 police force around the world.
Military
Yeah,
force.
that's what we've become. Anyway, we're going to wrap this little vignette up shortly because we just want you to know that we're still doing America's Third Party nightly, Monday through Saturday night, and we take Sundays off, but we have a 6 to 9 show that is awesome. It's just we interact politically with people in the room.
6 to 9 Pacific, so you can adjust that time based on your time zone and make sure you join us. If you want to monitor all the chat like we do, you can always go to coolrock.com.
Yeah.
And then you can find the different chat rooms and choose the one that you like best.
Yeah, that was our flagship site when we first started Cool Rock. We were going to create the Cool Rock Party, but we decided to change the name to America's Third Party. And we still hope a third party will form in time to stop the two parties from blowing it on the economy, on wars. The two parties can't seem to legalize marijuana, and we want to legalize marijuana.
And hopefully none of them blow us up. So
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.